accepted straight. It's like the same wrong way.
My name is Paul James. I host this news.
And the Golden Angel Award ceremony.
Hello, dear friends, lovely audience, and welcome to the East West Show, a show talking about right or wrong, a show talking about the truth, nothing but the truth, the naked truth. This show is exclusively sponsored by Wolfers. A prominent life must be matched by the palace-grade jewelries. Wolfers, the Belgian royal family-designated brand of jewelries with 400 years of glorious history and the hand-forged by 10 generations of the master craftsman. A testimony to the spectacular, a share of the royal family. Wolfers, the palace-grade artistic jewelry. Now starts the show. With me today is my dear friend, Brother Joe Gardner, a former police officer of Santa Monica PD for 27 glorious years. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
And right now, the president of the San Gabriel Valley Queen of Hospital, the Food Meals on Wheels programs, right? Mm-hmm. And also, he is the chairman of the Los Angeles County Probation Committee. Right. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jack. Right. Good to be here.
Thank you. By laying the titles, the hat he is wearing, only a few, he has more hat than I could announce. Probably you will tell the subject for today. We're talking about the death sentence. There's a call made to abolish the death sentence in California, made by our brand new governor. Well, before his seat is warm, this is already announced. And it has drawn lots of attention from all directions, including at this show. Prior to the show, I sent a little teaser, including a notification to my friends that I was planning to do the show, and lots of people sent their questions to me. Right. So with that, we want to start with Joe about your take, please. Well, first give us a status quo of death sentence in California, please.
Yeah, I'll give you a little overview for your viewers. There are 737 people on death row currently. Mm-hmm. It's a $5 billion a year program or system that's run by the prison system. The issue of what the governor did is really created a lot of controversy. It is scratched away the scabs of wounds from family members and victims, mm-hmm. Loved ones who have lost somebody due to perhaps one of these folks that are on death row. Mm. So what the governor did is basically executed an order creating a temporary reprieve of the death penalty in California.
What does that mean?
That means that he basically, for the duration of his term as governor, mm-hmm. There won't be any more executions. And not that we had any anyway. I don't think we've executed anybody in many years. Mm-hmm. So the
last I remember was the one in San Quentin, right. when Schwarzenegger was in power.
Yeah, that was right. Quite a long time ago.
Quite a long time ago, yeah.
Right.
So
what he did is basically it's a three-part order, and that was to reprieve the condemned, the execution of death sentence on condemned prisoners. Mm-hmm. He also had a second provision, which was to repeal the lethal injection protocol. Mm. And the third part of that provision was the closure of the execution chamber. Now what the controversy is about is the fact that Proposition 66 said that we will continue to have the death penalty. It was passed in 2016. Mm-hmm. 51% of the voters decided that we would keep that and not repeal the death penalty. And so basically what the governor may be doing is going against the will of the voters.
All right. Well, anyway, first of all, I find the numbers are very odd. We have 737 of prisoners to be on the death toll. 737. Well, 737. Yeah. We had an airplane of a 737 crashed.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, I'm joking. With the 737 on death toll, waiting to be executed, right? Governor all of a sudden pulls off a brand new idea of, together with three provisions we're talking about, his idea was to abolish it. Number one, to the provision. Number two, to close the death chamber, right? Number three, the protocols of the cocktails, whatever, whatever, right? Right. Without one, two cannot do. Without two, one or three cannot do. Correct. And without three, one or two can do, right? So that's one another, and that explains his determination of abolishing the death sentence. Should we not, right? Do you, Joe, find yourself in support or not in support?
Well, I'm a supporter of the death penalty, but that's, you can say that broad statement, but I also add some additional things to it. I think it's important that I'm a law and order person. Being a police officer for those 27 years, I got involved in law enforcement because I believed in justice. I believed in respect for the law. And I think it's important to respect and honor the will of the people. So I support it, but I also support the idea that we not get it wrong, that if we are going to execute somebody, then they should be able to exhaust all their appeals to make sure with certainty that they committed the crime and that justice was appropriate in the courts. So I think, once someone has gone through all the appeals process and it is determined that they truthfully committed a crime, then I believe that the sentence should be carried out, but only then. And, Governor Newsom, he has, it was emotional for him to do this. He did not want to have that resting on his shoulders, although he made a promise to the voters during the campaign that he was going to uphold the death penalty, do the will of the people as governor. And then he promptly changed it. So, I understand where he's coming from, but I also understand that if there are appeals processes and they are done properly, then only then we should be executing somebody.
All right, good. Of course, you and I getting along for so many years, right? You understand me. I'm a person of my words, of my look. You see me outside, you see my inside, right? And I call a spade, orange and orange, apple thing. I did not support Governor Newsom, but I find myself in support of this abolition thing on this issue. And I wonder if you may understand, or if my audience understand where I am from, right? And of course, by the way, I want to make my disclaimer that whatever I say represents only me, myself, named Jack Xiao, a father of three, right? That's it. It doesn't represent the organization, nor does it the show or anything else, not even my crew. Myself, totally nothing myself, my personal opinion. I support the idea of the abolition for two aspects, right? Let's say aspect number one, right? Now, basically, when crime is committed, you deserve punishment. That is right. Nothing wrong with this on this level of the balance, right? When goes up, more crimes committed, more punishment it deserves, he or she, right? On this level, it is right. Until it goes up and up and up and up to the very supreme, some life is taken. Should we take his life or her life? At this level, I recommend that we want to slow down for two reasons. Number one, how do you define justice, All right, somebody defined justice in a way for tit for tat, eye to eye. Right? I bite you one chunk of meat, you bite me, the same thing. Right? I give you a punch on the nose, you give me a punch on the nose. That's on the original level. Right? As a country, as a nation, as a legal system, for this many years though, I believe that we grew already out of the revengeful state. So I don't know if I make a point.
No, you do, and it's a valid one. I mean, it goes back, it's ancient history. I mean, for centuries, you know, we believed in that concept, an eye for an eye. And I think, though, there are deeper issues now today about the notion of whether or not the system works properly, if there is truly justice in the system, if you know, people can feel that the system is serving them properly, and that people respect the law. So I think there's a number of different things there that come into play, and obviously, as I said before, I'm a supporter of law and order, and I think you know, if we're going to do anything, that system of justice has to be done properly, correctly.
All right, okay. All right, with me today is my dear friend, Mr. Joe Gardner, former PD officer of Santa Monica, and still a brother to the community. And he is a law person, and I respect him a lot because he's a lover of the community. Let's take a short moment out. When we come back, we will continue. This show is exclusively sponsored by Wolfers. Wolfers testimony to the spectacular and the share of the royal glory. We will be right back.
Everything is expected to be straight. It's like the scenes John Wayne.
My name is Paul James. I host this news.
And a golden angel award ceremony.
Hello, dear friends, lovely audience. Welcome back to the show. Dear brothers and sisters, in California, we're talking about should death sentence be lifted, be abolished. Well, of course, the call is made by Governor Newsom. Says that, of course, he was a supporter of death sentence, right, of death penalty, and he changed his mind all of a sudden after he took office. However, I find myself in support of this. It's not done yet. It's not law yet. It's only a call, because I find there is something in there that I find myself in support of. Right. Okay, now, with me today is my friend Joe Gardner for this show that is exclusively sponsored by Wolfers. Wolfers, the Belgium royal family designated brand of jewelries with 400 years of his glorious history and hand-forged by 10 generations of master craftsmen, a testimony to the spectacular share of the royal glory. Before we touch the royal glory, we want to make sure that the glory of California as a tradition had been carried on. Right now, in the old days, when there was the gold rush, people come to the unknown land for their dream, though. All right. There were the quote-unquote laws called vigilante laws. Right. Well, everyone knows that system, right? Because a group of people, of villagers, mostly male, 100 of them, make us a House of Senate, some kind of House of Senate. They vote, right? Up or down, right? 51 down, the man is dead, right? Something like that, right? And they're talking about also for revenge, because you did something the community will not allow you, right? Okay, now, we grew up that level. We grew out of that jacket. That jacket is too small for us. So do you think we still have to do that?
You know, we came a long way since the early days of California, and you're correct. You know, the system was probably pretty wobbly back then, and it was based on vengeance and a lot of other things. And unfortunately, I think even today, though, many of those people that were executed were maybe executed innocently. You know, they maybe didn't commit the crime.
This is the other aspect that later we'll touch.
Sure, yeah.
But right now, just for the fairness part.
Yeah, no, I think we recognize that was a bad system to live under, and that we modified it and created layers and layers of regulations that would prevent someone from being accused wrongly, and so you know, it's a better system obviously than it was way back when.
Yeah, even when back then, when this guy is sentenced to death, right? Upon hanging, if any woman says, "I want him,"
Right.
the guy is saved.
Right.
He's released right away because of consideration of population.
Right.
Right? At that time, we had a very fast decreasing population because of war, because of slaughtering, because of the weather conditions, because of hardship at work, so on and so forth. Men were dying.
Correct.
So we need to make more people. We need a bigger population. Any woman, upon hanging, say, "I want him," or "save the life," or "save him," I want him. So the guy becomes a husband, and well, everything is paid off.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, in other word, law are made by man, right?
Correct.
And it must be not that irony. There is always a room left, right? Now, should we leave us a room, right?
Yeah, no, I think in this day and age, we do have to leave room to make sure that if the law is to be carried out, that it's done correctly. I mean, there are terrible stories, even today, there are terrible stories of people being wrongly prosecuted and remain on death row, and then later to be discovered because of new technology like DNA that they never did commit the crime, that they were never involved in that. And it's terrible to see somebody who spent decades in prison to be suddenly exonerated and released. They lost a good portion of their life. Unfortunately, the living time they spent on this earth was incarceration. It would be terrible to see somebody executed, killed, because the system did not do the proper thing and give that person a chance to plead his case.
On the other hand, if our legal system had been that accurate, why would O.J. Simpson be set free?
Yeah, well, I mean, he had a jury of his peers, and his peers felt otherwise. So
it
doesn't always work. It's not a perfect system. It doesn't always work.
Yeah, all right. That is, you're really hitting the nail on the head, right? So that indicates that our system is not that perfect.
Exactly.
Right? The system can be challenged.
Correct.
When a system that can be still challenged, right, by only two men, John Cockney, Robert Shapiro, these two attorneys.
Right.
Do you still recall them, right?
Yeah, I recall.
Judge Ito, right?
Right, I remember.
Robert Shapiro, John Cockney. The three challenged the whole thing. They challenged the whole thing. So the system. Okay, now I'll give you a one quote from a guy that I interviewed on my show. He was a reporter. He was a NBC reporter, I believe, assigned on that case from A to Z in court, right? He wrote everything. He wrote every report from court of the whole thing of O.J. Simpson case.
Right.
Now, I asked him at the end of the interview. I said, now that you know this much about O.J., do you really believe O.J. did not kill? You know what he said?
What?
He said, let me put it this way. In my career as a reporter in court, I have seen lots of people, lots of suspects convicted with much, much, much lesser witness or convictions.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it happens every day, you know.
Right? So, well, means that this system is not totally perfect. No. It's not strong.
I would agree with you there.
It can be challenged, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, now, with such a system, though, people totally rely on the system to do the tit for tat. I see the protest. I understand every single one of them, the protesters. Mm-hmm. I know what they have gone through. All of a sudden, they lost their loved ones, right? In the morning, they kiss goodbye and never return, right. Such as officer, right? Mm-hmm. We had his funeral yesterday. Yeah. However, to kill the criminal will not bring him back.
No, it won't.
Won't, right? Okay, now.
No, but it does provide some healing, unfortunately. We're an emotional society, right? We live by emotion. And, people want to feel a sense of closure. So I think that's kind of what's important at this day and age.
Yeah. I understand. Now you're talking about getting to the mind of the victim's family, right? Of their relatives, mm-hmm. to think like what they think, right? I am trying to get to the mind of the law, the system. Try to think as the system think. Mm-hmm. And there is another perspective to think as the criminals themselves, as a human being.
Right.
As a human being, right? Knowingly life needs to be terminated, right? I don't know if right or wrong to say the following. However, whatever I say represents only myself, right? Now, when I get killed by a stray bullet, boom, I die at the very moment, the blink of the second. I did not have time to feel any pain. Physical pain, emotional pain, nothing, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Knowingly, I am going to be hanged. Knowingly, I'm going to be injected. Knowingly, I'm to be electrocuted. Knowingly, I'm to be put in a gas chamber, whatsoever, though, for 2 months, 3 months, the emotional suffer. Do you, as the law, do that part of the study to go into the emotional suffer of that part of the story as a human mind?
Well, there are two factions in our society, especially in California, those who believe in law and order and a deterrence to crime, punishment for many believe that is a way to deter crime. Mm-hmm. I have mixed feelings about that. And then on the other hand, we have people that are very compassionate and they want to make sure that we are humane. There's nothing wrong with being a humane society. I think that's important because if we care for each other, we translate that through all the things that we do, from taking care of the disabled to those homeless on the street to the drug addict in the back alley, victims of domestic violence. You talk about balance, right? That's that kind of issue right now, and I think there's nothing wrong with being compassionate and humane.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Remember last time you and I talking about the AB 109, the 50 Proposition 57, no, right. 47, 57 thing. Mm-hmm. At those times, I was so strong in taking them incarcerated rather than letting them out on the street, right? And here I do the same thing, right? Keep them incarcerated, keep them locked up for a lifetime without a chance of parole, equals to death anyway, right? Okay, my dear friends, let's take a short moment out. This show is exclusively sponsored by Wolfers. Wolfers, the Belgian royal family, designated the brand of jewelry. So we'll be right back.
Everything. We have to continue to work on it now.
My name is Paul James. I host English News every morning.
And the golden angel award ceremony.
Hello, dear friends, my lovely audiences. Welcome back to the East West Show, a show talking about right or wrong, a show talking about the truth, nothing but the truth. This show is exclusively sponsored by Wolfers. A prominent life must be matched by the palace-grade jewelries. Wolfers, the Belgian royal family designated brand of jewelries with 400 years of glorious history and hand-forged by 10 generations of the master craftsman, a testimony to the spectacular share of the royal glory. Wolfers, the palace-grade artistic jewelry. So back to the show. With me today is my dear brother, my dear friend, Joe Gardner, and brother to the community, a protector to the community, put it that way. He's been the PD officer of Santa Monica for 27 glorious years. And after retirement, he continued his service locally, and also he is the chairman of the Los Angeles County Probation Committee, right? So he and I used to talk about a lot of times on the AB 109, early release jail alignment issue, and the follow-up of the Proposition 4757, so on and so forth, for which he and I agreed to one point that we should have them locked up rather than released on the street, early released on the street. Now, on the issue of death sentence, should we abolish? Well, I wish to uphold the same position to keep them incarcerated, keep them locked up, rather than have them killed, right? Executed. After all, we have 737 of them altogether. So here's argument. Not argument. It's kind of a different, because he and I never argue, right? Just a disagreement, right? Disagreement. And I believe each side has its strong support, right? And by that I mean you may write your opinions to me, to jack@edimedia.com, jack@edimedia.com. We will get back to you. We will announce your point of take, and if you're willing, we may have to invite you to come on the show to talk about, to state your own opinion. What I think, I believe some people are in my shoes, right? Okay, because they support. And I believe that you have your own ground to hold, that you want the community to be a fair ground for the playing. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, I come from a position that says, we have to have a safe society. You and I are not very far apart.
No.
You're right. We never argued, but
you would never argue, yeah.
We both feel a sense that there should be a law and justice, law and respect for the law, and I feel that the death penalty sends a message to those who would consider breaking.
Deter.
As a deterrent. I think in some sense it probably works. But I also have mixed emotions about the execution of a death sentence. You have to make sure it's done the right way. If it's going to be done, it has to be humane. And if it's going to be done, all avenues need to be exhausted so that there is no doubt that this person committed the crime for which they were sentenced. So, that's where I come from.
Yeah, of course. I do agree with you. And I just differ myself a little bit from you, right? We both are supporter of justice, are supporter of our judicial system, right? However, the judicial system has to be judicial before it can make any judgment. Am I right?
Correct.
Okay, now, a judicial system means it has to be free from the mind of revenge,
Right.
hateful mind,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely.
You kill my brother, for example. I hate you for killing my brother. Okay, to look at me, you are right to agree with me that my hate is rightful,
Right.
right? My hatred to you is rightful. I wish you dead the moment I see you. Because you killed my brother. It's hatred in my mind. I want revenge. As a person to person, okay.
And therein lies the imperfection of the system. Because we have people in jail now who were put there because of somebody's hateful vengeance upon them, who are willing to perjure themselves, who are willing to lie, to say anything to get that person convicted, even though they may not have committed the crime.
You're right.
And,
You're right.
and that's where that imperfection of the system comes in.
So the point is that I may say, for example, my brother may agree with you with my hatred, right? The law might not. The law would say, stop hate, let the law take over. Am I right?
Right.
Once the law take over, the law does not take my position to revenge on my behalf.
Right.
Am I right?
That's correct.
Right?
Has to be unbiased.
Yeah, sure, of course. So those ladies, the protesters on the street, they say, kill them, they deserve to die, whatsoever, da, 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 da. They are right. They are totally right. I understand from exactly as a human mind. But to make a law say that, they deserve to die because they made that woman cry.
Right. It's beyond, the system has to be working towards the beyond the reasonable doubt phrase.
Exactly.
Always.
Exactly. That has to stand any kind of challenge.
Correct.
Over any kind of time length, right? For example, those guys died before the age. Should we have a chance to go over, do a test again, and we believe we can still do it these days. Go back to the cases that we had already sentenced those guys, has already been executed. I believe we have samples whatsoever reserved.
Yeah, no,
Right.
I agree with you.
If we really dare to do it, to run the DNA test again, we'll find a great number of them being wrongly sentenced, wrongly executed, right?
Yeah.
So that's another perspective to look at it.
That terrible thing is mistakes have happened.
Now let me finish on the hatred side, right? Now, to revenge is my animal part as a human being. I want to make it fair to me, right? So that you kill my brother, you pay my brother with your own life.
Right.
I be the judge, right? The law comes in and say, hey, you guys take it easy. Let me do the job. Law does the job. The law goes to the procedures or all the processes and has to stand all kind of challenges though, right? Now, I believe as a confirmation, folks will agree with me, there is a difference between revenge and the justice, right?
Right. Pure justice is what we should always pursue. Vengeance, there's no room for vengeance in our legal system. We shouldn't be working on that premise. That being said, it happens every day, somewhere in this country, somebody exacts vengeance on a person through the courts, and they get wrongfully, the person that's accused gets wrongfully convicted. And so there's no room for that. We have to fix that system. It's not a perfect system, but we should always strive for that perfection.
All right. That's a good take. That's a very good take, because I hope folks on both sides would agree with me. And never take me wrong. I'm never speaking on their behalf. The criminals, I'm never speaking on their behalf. I'm right now acting sort of like their attorney to say, is there any room, or is there any mistake, or is there anything wrong in the document, or any mistakes made, right? Right. And the O.J. Simpson case was a typical example that even the system this perfect can be challenged in the historical way, right? And in front of the eyes of everybody, it happens every single day in front of everybody's eyes how lie won. Lie won the whole game, right? And those folks who were not lying, well, they were defeated totally. Right. Such as the LAPD, right? Yeah. So, things like that. Okay, my dear friends, today with me is my lovely brother, Joe Gardner, a diligent man in the community who never stops his service even after retiring from Santa Monica PD. And he is now the chairman of the LA County Committee of Probation. Correct. Am I right? Okay, very good. Let's take a very short moment out. We come back. We are talking about the death sentence. Should we allow the death sentence to be abolished? Right? Well, if we keep it, what is the benefit of keeping it? What's the benefit of abolishing it? This show is exclusively sponsored by Wolfers. Wolfers, the Belgian royal family, designated the brand of jewelry. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Everything we continue to work on it now.
My name is Paul James. I host English News every morning.
And a golden angel award ceremony.
Hello, dear friends, lovely folks. Welcome back to the show talking about right or wrong, the show talking about the truth, nothing but the truth. A prominent life must be matched by the palace-grade jewelries. Wolfers, the Belgian royal family, designated the brand of jewelries with 400 years of glorious history and hand-forged by 10 generations of the master craftsman, a testimony to the spectacular share of the royal glory. Wolfers, the palace-grade artistic jewelry. That continues to the show. With me today is my good friend, Mr. Joe Gardner, a former PD officer of Santa Monica Department, having put up 27 glorious years in the service. I believe during the service, he has seen lots of death. He has seen lots of life being lost, right? And he has been handling many cases where life was involved, right? So, as a law person, I really understand his position. I really understand what he represents. But as a community member, though, he does not reject the fact that I think differently, right? That's the beauty. That's the beautiful part of Brother Joe. What I think is that I want to make sure that people understand if the law system had been a person, in his mind though, who is the criminal, who is not a criminal, and what does this criminal deserve, that's a different story, right? When you, like I said, going up on the balance though, until you reach the supreme point when only a death sentence can pay, there are two choices. One, to lock this person up for life with never a chance of probation, right? So that's one way. And on the other, well, just kill it. Now, you're talking about $75 billion per year?
Oh, no, it's $5 billion.
I'm sorry. $5 billion, 75 is huge.
Right. Well, $5 billion is a lot too.
$5 billion per year to keep them.
Right.
To keep them. Why can't we save money? Why do we have to spend $5 billion, that kind of astronomical number, to keep them there?
No, someone will say that, why are we paying to keep somebody on death row for so long?
Why we do that?
With the appeals process and the housing and the medical care and the feeding, all the necessities a human being takes. They say, why should we be paying for that, especially if the court has already decided that they should be executed? But there is a process. You have to go through that process.
After all, 737 of them, right? And how much they eat, each of them? $100 per day?
Who's to say? Yeah. I mean, the number that I heard was $65,000 to $75,000 a year per prisoner.
So. All right, good. Yeah. And then why $5 billion? That's the system, right? They blame that mistake, the original system mistake, to the death sentence. It's not death sentence itself, right? Because the math does not work. If we say 737 of them, $100 a day, right? That's what? That's 70 something thousand per day for this whole group.
Right.
And the time 365, right? That's a million and 800,000 something, right? It never goes to 5 billion. That's the system.
Right. But you include the costs of medical treatment, and as many of these prisoners are preparing to die of old age on death row, many of them have some significant health
you
problems.
do it on an annual basis anyway.
Right.
Annually 5 billion, right? So it's it doesn't matter how many years you're talking about. You're talking about per year $5 billion, right? Okay, now, and if we look into a checkup of the system, how money is spent into the spending, though, we'll find out lots of loopholes in the death sentence story, death toll story, rather than blaming that on a single issue.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
If I had time, I would probably do a research on the exact numbers. Right?
Yeah, you scratch the surface and you'll find all kinds of other
find out
things.
all kind of maybe there's a grand prize there. All right, who knows, right? Okay. On the other hand, I always take this philosophy. There are two things that you can do. One thing you do, you never be afraid of making mistakes. Once mistake is made, there is always a chance to fix it.
Correct.
Right? Right. For example, if I accuse you wrongly, next day there is always a chance for me to say, sorry, Joe, forgive me, I was wrong. I was acting out of my mind yesterday, right? Please forgive me. Thank you, so on and so forth. I try to fix it.
The system should work that way.
Yeah, sure. However, there are things. Once you make a mistake, there's never a chance to fix it.
Right.
A head, you chop it off.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? You can never put it back on.
Right.
A life, you kill it on an electrical chair, in a gas chamber, or with the injections, or hang, or with a bullet, though, you will never bring it back.
No, it won't. You know, and I hear what you're saying. We don't want to make a mistake like that and take a life and then discover that an error was made.
Yeah.
And that would be the terrible thing, you know.
Yes. Remember, a few days ago, I heard a piece of news. It's not in California, whatever state. The guy is suing the state for several $1 billion because of a wrongly accused or wrongly incarcerated for that many years and was on death row for that many years. And it's talking about compensation after compensation after compensation. That compensation will still not pay for his suffering of his emotional loss.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So now, lucky that guy, that execution never happened. Well, should that happen, there's not even a chance to compensate him.
No.
Right? Now, my question, are we, our system, big enough to take the challenge of O.J. Simpson? In other words, a system so big that can even take the challenge of O.J. Simpson, can we take the challenge of our own mistakes?
We should be able to.
We should.
But if you add the human factor to the equation, we don't. It's not a perfect system. We've talked about that. There are so many flaws in the system. The system could be better.
Okay.
And I fear that there are people sitting somewhere in a jail cell that shouldn't be there.
All right. Good.
You know.
I give you an example. If ours is a regime that obtained through uprising, through the military force, right? We are afraid of being overthrown next day. So we want to execute everybody possibly doing the thing, right? Because our own fear. So we're here to stand to testify that we're strong enough to survive 240 years, though we are the strongest on earth, right?
Right.
Nobody can push us, right? So the 737 of the prisoners, they will do nothing. They will do nothing. Just keep them there, lock them up there. So forever.
Yeah, I mean, you are swaying me to your side. I still have that feeling of justice being important and respect for the law. But you know, you are right. Yeah. Sure, as long as they would never be able to escape, as long as they would never be able to go and exact vengeance on the rest of the families of the victims. You know, maybe perhaps if you have those safeguards that are always going to keep that person there.
Even the possibilities are only 1 ppm or ppb, right? Part per billion, though, and you still make a mistake that can never be fixed. And the same question I may even ask, that why the President of the United States is only given the right of veto, not the right of impose.
Yeah, well, the systems of government, right?
Yeah, all right. The same thing, the same logic, right? If the President of the United States has given the right of imposing, though, he can impose, say, have this person killed, boom, killed. Right? Now, if the law says this person has to be killed, and now the president has the power of veto it, but he says no. At least stay for 1 day, all right? Kill it tomorrow. Yeah. And the next day, still there is another chance. It goes on and on and on. There is if the head absolutely needs to be chopped off, there is always a chance to do it the next day, next year, next 10 years. Next 100 years, right? Mm-hmm. And if it's not supposed to be chopped off and you chop it off, though, there's never a chance.
No, there's never a chance. And you can't have one person making that kind of a decision. It means to be done by society, it's people. That's why we have this system.
However, with the death sentence on the law, though, well, before it's abolishment, it is the law that says have that person killed. In spite of possibility, chances are that mistakes could be made.
Yeah, and you hit a key point, but the law governed by the people, right?
What?
The system that was designed by the people.
I'm not persuading you to swing to me, but I'm glad that we are not totally arguing. We each explained or laid down our views, right? And I believe that's a good way to handle. And now to look into the future, though, what will happen to exactly the case?
Well, I think there's
To exactly the issue.
Right, in California and with Governor Newsom's decision, I think it's going to be litigated in the courts. It will go to the Supreme Court, and eventually a decision will be made, and it would take years. Perhaps if he's not successful in being reelected, things go back to the way they were. So it'll be interesting to see how that will shake out through the court system.
All right. In other words, it's just a concept right now. Just a concept, right? But anyway, even if it is a concept, it's still good to think the other way.
Sure, of course.
To think the other way, right? And once again, I'm not speaking on their behalf. I'm only speaking on behalf of humanity, right? And from a humanitarian point of view, while life is lost already, then keep this from hurting anybody else. That's it, right? That's the whole thing, whole purpose.
And the key thing is there should never be mistakes in the justice system.
All right.
It needs to work.
Well, once a mistake is made, you always want to make sure that you have room to correct it.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay.
There we agree.
Very agree. All right. Good. My dear friend, my lovely audience is with my dear brother Joe Gardner. We had a little exchange of ideas over the issue: should we abolish the death sentence or not? Governor Newsom made his determination that he will do it, in spite of the fact that he was supporting death sentence prior of taking the office. Now he made a change. I'm not arguing about his changing his positions. I'm talking about the fact that the death sentence needs to be abolished or not really calls for a second degree, a second level degree of consideration, right? So with my friend Joe Gardner, I thank you very much. And to my audiences in the community, I thank you very much for joining me. By the way, please feel free to write to me, say Jack at edimedia.com. This show is exclusively sponsored by Wolfers, the Belgian royal family, designated the brand of jewelry. All right, we'll see you next time.